Good morning, October the 29th, 2020 at 8:03 a.m. Not a bad day. It's kind of warmed up a little bit. We had pretty cold weather, a lot of rain, with snow. Now it's warming up. I think November is going to most likely be better than October. The reason why, sometimes a person gets an idea or something and it bugs them. And what's bugging me today is something I had not really realized. And I read something about a guy who wrote something, I don't know if it was a book or whatever, 90 years ago. They mentioned his name and everything else. And what he was writing about is the loss of individualism. And he said people will worldwide would end up wearing masks at one time, which would allow them to be stripped of their individualism and would allow totalitarian regimes to take over, and there wouldn't be any democracy of any kind anymore, and it would be brought in by fear. Well, I thought, huh, what more of a description of 2020 is that? The idea of loss of individualism is big. I mean, it's a big game changer. It looks to me, I didn't think about this before, but it looks to me like it's now a forerunner of what's predicted. you know, I mean, how else would they really do it? The people are so manipulated, can be so manipulated by fear that it's just amazing. I mean, if somebody would have told me that before, I'd said, come on. No, it doesn't have to be fear that is, shaking in your boots fear or anything. It can be just a low level fear or something, looking back over your shoulder, whatever, that drives people to do these things. And it seems like that if you don't conform, that's the big fear. And that's exactly what's happening. And, people are, at least somebody like me, doesn't really realize what takes place to bring about all these big changes. God has predicted them. Most likely, most people don't know how it's going to happen, but there it is, right in front of you, and it's happening right in front of you. And the loss of individualism, that's what's happening now, right now. And the thing is, it's not local, it's worldwide. So it's, well, I believe that God calls you by name. God knows your name. Satan will call you by a number. But to take over the world, to control the whole population of the world, has to be a pretty dastardly, devious system. But I think that's exactly what's taking place, right in front of our eyes. It may not happen right all at once. We may get over this, and but it will have been already proven that it can be done. And all it takes is some good reason, and people will fall in line immediately. What the thing that really worries me is that I believe what God says and I believe what the Bible says. I don't necessarily believe what man-made religions say, because I don't believe that. I don't think they're they have the power to do that. There are hundreds and hundreds of different religions, and all claiming to be right. That's wrong. That is not true. But the Bible itself and the words of Jesus has got to be true, otherwise there's nothing. So it's always amazed me that, no matter how much you want to rail against something, you can't change it. So the only other thing to do is realize that this is all a plan, and for sure that Jesus came to do what he did, to save the people who believe. And the funny part about it is how this can be based on belief. That's it. You can't work for it, buy it, you can't do anything. And that to me, that is such a strange thing, but that's the way God works. And he knows everybody's thoughts. He's created us. He knows every single cell in our body. And when we are created, we are given a spirit. God gives every single human being a spirit the minute they're conceived. And when they die, the spirit goes back to God again and waits there till it's called. So the thing is that, in God's view, it's totally, absolutely important what you believe. the things you do as a result of your beliefs, that's different. But to do something to get to so that God has to give it to you, that doesn't work. No, and this business of God knowing who he's going to have in his kingdom and who he isn't, I'm not too sure about that, but it does. A lot of places it looks like that's the case. That's been predetermined. But maybe it's predetermined up to a point, and then it's left to see, because he leaves human nature with choice. They have a choice. They're the only time that we know of that that's been available to human beings, to have a choice. They can choose. Because to have a real son, he has to have a son that chooses him as his father and wants to. Yeah. When I see the direction that things are going, it's going fast. I mean, all these things that are basically antichrist, anti-God. They've taken God out of worshiping in a lot of places. They're trying to get rid of religion altogether. Taking it out of schools, taking it out of business, whatever. Not allowed to. Some places you're not even allowed to preach it. They're soon going to come along. They're soon going to come along and call it hate speech, which they've already said. Because now you have all kinds of things that God is definitely against, and people who are halfway reasonable know it. Now they can say, "Oh, I don't believe the Bible. Who could write the Bible and whatever?" That's not right. It's the only communication that the Creator has given to His creation, and it stood the test of time. I mean, it's over, it's a couple thousand, over 2,000 years now or more. But it was wrote over 1,500. It took 1,500 years for the Bible to be wrote by all these different people separately. The idea, basically, what I see so vivid, just absolutely vivid, is the direction that people are taking, where they reject God. They just reject God. They have no fear of God's judgment. That's the big problem. And this generation, and maybe the generation just before this, maybe it's the last. I kind of think it's the last generation, which is usually 33 to 40 years, has the ones who are rejected. Basically, in a nutshell, have rejected God. I'm wearing these dark sunglasses today because I was in the hospital yesterday and had both of my eyes operated on, and they're pretty puffy and red, and they were bleeding, but then they quit bleeding now. But they're swollen up. I don't know if I'm going to get black eyes or what. But I told the surgeon in there, it was Sundeep Upal. Nice guy. I told him, I said, I was laying there and I said, okay, I said, I want you to give me an ironclad guarantee that this, what you're doing will last for another 86 years. He laughed and he said, absolutely. Basically, he just did a thing to tighten up my bottom eyelids, which are sagging down, and he called it entropy or something like that. I don't know. He said, the right eye was the worst, and he said, well, I'm going to do both. I'm going to stitch up this one and stitch up the other one. Pull them, put stitches in that just pull them back up. I don't know if it's going to work or not. Only took about 3/4 of an hour, maybe not even that. I was in and out of there. Froze both eyes. Just froze them. Couldn't feel a thing. It's cutting away and stitching and pulling and yeah, it's amazing. But anyway, this idea of loss of individualism is a big flag. It shows that we're going into a situation in this world which is going to be a one world government for sure. And we may get by with it for maybe another few years. Depends on, I think, one of the big things will be is how the election goes in the United States in a couple of days. If it goes to Trump, it most likely will be held up for another 4 years anyway, but after that, the socialist, communist people or whatever are going to get in, and individualism and democracy, as people call it, which is a bunch of hooey anyway, but it's only it's the one that's been running the Western world for the last 200 some years or more. But it's it's not perfect, and but the thing is that's got nothing to do with it. God's timetable is the one that has. That's the thing. His timetable is coming. It's going to be done. It doesn't. It doesn't say that on December the 24th this is going to happen. It says this is going to happen. Watch for it. It doesn't say when, because time is not something that God actually deals with us. He deals with it differently because he's outside of time. But everything he said will be done. And there's no doubt about it. He knows the exact minute it's going to be done. But he doesn't tell us that. And a lot of this is I often say that if I asked you how many, how many people how many people are in your army? If you said, we have many people in the army. What is many? What do you mean by many? 1,000? 2,000? The thing that from what I understand is, when God says many, God does not embellish anything. He never exaggerates like we do. He just says, I will have many sons. Christ is the firstborn of many sons. What is that? Could be millions, billions, because things done on God's scale is so horrendously big and large that it's way beyond what we can imagine. When I think of just the creation and that, I mean, that's a big thing. You look at creation, you see sun, moon, stars, earth, rivers, mountains, blah, 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 nature. You see all that. But then you don't look at the mechanics of it. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller and more precise and more, you get down to atoms and neutrons and whatever, and they still have systems, and you can't see them, they're so small, but they all have systems. And when you look at that, you say, well, how can, what is this? How can this be? Well, take for instance, I'm 86 years old. I've been running, this body's been running for 86 years. Basically, repairing itself and keeping on. The only thing you notice, all the wrinkles, wrinkle ranch. I'm living at Wrinkle Ranch. A lot of old people. Now the thing is, what happens is I don't get wrinkles. What happens is I got too much skin. The skeleton shrinks and the skin doesn't. So that's just they should just pull it all up here, cut it off, tighten the whole thing up, cut it off, and not get rid of the excess skin. And you look around at people, they're all got flab skin, hanging here, jowls, underarms, all kinds. They could donate skin to all over the place. But anyway, the main thrust of what I'm talking about today is individualism. And it's so, I could just feel it. When I heard this, I just thought, this guy is right on. How come he wrote this 90 years ago? And just now people are realizing that. Not that he's a great person or anything. He was just an ordinary guy who had some kind of vision of this or whatever. And that just shows that God has his own time for doing things. And it's like I was planning, I kind of booked a few 11 days in Puerto Vallarta and then back to San Diego and then a cruise, 7-day cruise down to Mexico and back again on the Konings Dam in Holland, America, the newest ship. Sounds like a pretty good little holiday, actually. But I don't know if I'm going to go. The way it sounds, I may not. Because people are fearful now. I don't think it would make a bit of difference if you wore a mask. If anyone wore masks or not, I'm pretty sure the end result would be pretty close to the same. Wearing masks doesn't stop that. I mean, it's scientifically not even possible. A mask will filter out, I think, things down to what they call 3 microns. It's very small. What they claim, like the corona virus, China virus, coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, is 1 micron. So it could easily just come in. Anyway. The thing is, it's touching is most likely more important than masks. But masks are a feel-good way. This is how we're going to fight things. Oh, yes, we all got to do this. Get together. Oh, if you don't wear a mask, I'm going to. But that's fear. That's the exact fear that people have. And they can be manipulated by fear just like that is how the things, globalists will do it. And I mean, you said, as soon as I say that, you say, oh, yeah, he's talking about it. That's most likely very, very true. One world government is what's on the table, and that's been thwarted quite a few times, but it's there and it's coming one way or the other. And I can see the way it's going to come. I didn't realize this before, but I can see now they get rid of individualism. That's the big holdup. That is what holds it back. Individuals. We were blessed to be individuals in North America, at least, for what, a couple hundred years now, over 200 years. That means people could start doing things what they wanted to do. The other guy didn't do it. Well, they fine. Just don't leave me alone. I'm going to do it my way, this way. And they built ranches, businesses, farms, and it finally started to conglomerate in, drift into bigger cities. Now there's less agriculture, less farming area, which means less individualism. Farming was individualism. I grew up on a farm, a little economic unit. Ours was 320 acres. Most of them were 160 acres. There was no government money of any kind or support or nothing. Didn't even think about it. You looked, everything had to come from the land on that farm. It had to be grown. It was agriculture. I don't care if it was timber, grain, beef, hogs, chickens, cat, milk, whatever. It all came off the farm. And we lived on the farm. That's what it was. It was an actual economic unit. It was like a little farm factory.
According to Wikipedia, a farm is an area of land that is devoted primarily to agricultural processes with the primary objective of producing food and other crops. It is the basic facility in food production. The name is used for specialized units such as arable farms, vegetable farms, fruit farms, dairy, pig and poultry farms, and land used for the production of natural fibers, biofuel, and other commodities.
Thank you, Alexa.
You're welcome.
Did you hear that? Yes, that's the way I have now, you believe this or not, I have two dots, and Alexa Echo, and two Alexa 8-inch shows.
I didn't catch that. Please say that again.
Alexa, stop. I live alone with Alexa, so she's my only company. That's something, eh? You live with a false voice and person. That fits the times. The thing is that all this what's going on now, like just turn TV on. If you watch TV like I do, I usually watch the news or whatever, but most of my watching now is on YouTube, and I'll go to a boat section, or I'll go to some other deals, or I'll pick some people that I really like listening to, and one of them is a guy, Englishman by the name of Derek Prince. He's dead now, but he preached for many, many, many years. He's a stiff old Englishman, and he was in the British Army, and he was also in the universities and England, pigs, Oxford and all that. And he all of a sudden, in the Army is when he got converted, and it was, I guess, a real conversion, because he ended up on the floor and he was laughing and crying and doing all kinds of things, and the people in the barracks didn't know what to do. It took until morning to get over it. Then he was changed. He said he was changed completely. He used to be a pretty rough guy, I guess. But he's a very nice, or not nice, he's a very precise person to listen to. Everything he does is very precise. He speaks on a subject. He doesn't wander off, you know, trying to be an entertainer, like most preachers do. They learn to entertain and put on a show. Who put on the biggest show who gets the biggest crowd. No, that's why I like listening to him. And there's another Englishman too, David Pawson. He's a pretty good. He's very good. He's in England too, but I think they're both dead now. And compared to the preachers that you hear these days, some of them are just nuts. I mean, nuts. I can't go for that kind of stuff at all. What I do believe in is, I guess, the Ten Commandments. That's the thing, God's 10 Commandments. That's basically it. I believe in, God sent Jesus to this world to be born here and die here for the people who would believe it and would believe that God did it. And God says, if you believe that, I will save you for my coming kingdom, which is a million billion times better than this. And it's eternal, forever. No material body to wear out like this one. Spiritual body. Permanently spiritual body. Doesn't need anything. There's life in it. And, I don't know how that works, but I think to myself, is there bathrooms in there? Or, shouldn't need a bathroom. Yet they say they can eat, they can do things, but what happens? Is it spiritual food or something? And of course, we can't fathom. We can only believe what he said and leave it up to. You can use your imagination, I guess, but yeah, I was going to say something and it slipped away on me. Huh. Yeah. If I say this, people will get pissed off with me, but I'm going to say it anyway. And it's nothing I can do about it at all. It's the drift away from God's plan of things. For instance, it is very plain, and it says it in the Bible a couple different places. The hierarchy of God's plan of kingdom is God the Father, then it goes to Jesus Christ the Son, then it goes to the man under Jesus, and then the woman under the man. That is the hierarchy. That's not the way it's working. That's a rebellion against that. Women are rebelling, and why is it women? Why? Is it because women are more susceptible to be manipulated that way? All I know I was going to mention again, remind people that the last thing basically Jesus said before he left this earth was, do not be deceived. Watch that you are not deceived. Well, there's deception going on like you wouldn't believe. And it appears to me that women are more susceptible to deception than men are. Yet men, there's getting very few of them anymore. I see other than older people like me, younger people are getting less and less male. They are getting effeminate. Men entertainers or something, they sing like girls. They they're either effeminate, or there are some, a good percentage, I guess, of them that are now gay. That's all basically against God's will. God hates that. And that's what's happening. And mind you, that's exactly what he said was going to happen. It's nothing happening that God didn't say. Not a thing happening that God didn't say was going to happen. Everything coming up. And the next thing on our table for us is, when there's certain things done, it has to be done in Israel. There has to be something happen with temples and Jewish people and whatever. I can't really say what it is all now, but that has to happen first. And then the great deception takes place, and the Antichrist comes up and rules the world for a few years, destroys basically just about everything. And then Christ comes and destroys the Antichrist and takes over the world and runs it for 1,000 years. And then during that 1,000 years, he puts everything down that's wrong on the earth, I guess. And at the very end, he has another war, and all the people who still reject God are destroyed. Then the earth is totally renewed. The earth is burnt to crisp, all on fire. The heavens and the earth are both on fire. They're purged. And a new heaven and a new earth. I often think when I want to ask these guys, is save the planet, do this, global warming, blah, blah, blah. I want to know how long. How long are you going to save it? What do you want to, how long do you want to save it? God says it's going to be gone. Everything you see is going to be gone. Everything. In a certain time. It could be whatever time it takes to get to the millennium, when Christ returns, plus 1,000. So I don't know when it happens, but it's 1,000 plus whatever. And the thing is, if a person just looks at the Antichrist business coming here to take over the world and put everybody in subjection, and people will go for it. I know they will. They just will, because you go now, even now, to the hospital or something. People are in there trying to say, get another week of life. Give me another pill. Give me another pill. What for? That's ridiculous. You're not supposed to love this life to the, you need to give this life up, you give it up. It's finished. But the big thing is, there's nothing in this universe, I guess, that is bigger or better news than what Jesus brought. The gospel, the good news from God the Father to his creation, that he was going to save them, for those who are going to be his. If they're going to be his, he's going to save them. But there's lots that are not going to be. But that's the good news. All this other talk and all this stuff that people do and blab away on TV and politics, it means zero. Absolutely zero. It means nothing. And if we had half a brain, we'd realize that every word that God says is real. It's totally real. And everything that Jesus said is absolute. Take it to the bank. It's gold. It never changes. That's the problem. Or not the problem. That's the thing. God does not change. People think they can say, oh, well, we don't want to do that. We want to be this way now. We're modern, And, if you want to live the way you want to live, go ahead and live the way you want. It doesn't matter. Of course it matters. If you say it doesn't matter, why do you say it doesn't matter if it matters? Deception, man, oh man. Jesus said, don't be deceived. And how easy that is. And how many are going to be deceived? Most likely millions. Millions. That's the sad part. There's so many people that could and it's the thing is, God has offered it as a free gift. You can't buy it, can't earn it. If you agree and you want and your desire is to be his son, women will be sons if they go to heaven. They're not going to go to heaven. Nobody's going to go to heaven. Heaven is coming to earth. That's plain and simple. There's blinking religion talk of people going to heaven and floating away to heaven is just bonkers. What amazes me is why God would pick the earth out of all the planets in the universe. I've heard that the earth is situated in such a position that it can view out over the whole universe. It has a special position in the universe. Now, whether all the universe is going to disappear or not, God says that it's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. If he says heavens, that means stars, whatever. So, when we hear about the big black hole eating up the Milky Way, who knows? Maybe that God is putting the whole universe in black hole canisters for maybe later sometime. I don't know. Anyway, I better quit right now. That's enough for today. Thank you very much. If you listened, thank you.